Welcome to another Quantum Conversation. I'm Loren Gailey, and I invite you to sit back as we enter the quantum realm, that space of the greater part of you. It is your connection to infinite possibilities, infinite potential, and infinite mastery. Welcome, beautiful hearts. This is another episode in this Quantum Conversation Summit Series, Energy Healing and Well-Being. And today we are talking with two beautiful souls who are here to help us understand how we can unlock your unconscious and awaken your innate well-being. SomRa and Rika is here, and Rajay Ashley is here, and we are in for an incredible journey in this episode. Hello, ladies. Welcome.
Hello. Good to be here.
Yes, this is very exciting. So we're going to learn a little bit about each of you. First, I want to give a little background of who SomRa is, and then SomRa, you can share who Rajay is, and both of you can offer a little bit of introduction for our audience. SomRa is a walk-in, an ET walk-in, and a high-level frequency of awareness, and she's here helping beings on this planet now uncover trauma from our childhood, trauma from the womb, trauma from past lives that really keep us from our connection to source and our joy and happiness. So SomRa, thank you for being here. Welcome.
Thank you, Loren. Yeah, just kind of a brief overview of what's kind of led to what we're going to talk about today and the work that Rajay and I do together. Is I had one of my major walk-ins, as you know, I've had several. One of them was in the mid 80s. And at that time period, I was on a different trajectory, and it sent me on this new trajectory to become a spiritual teacher and healer and all that kind of stuff. And so I learned a lot of techniques, a lot of different trainings, and a lot of abilities opened up. And one of the trainings that I took was called etheric healing. And it was basically just a mentorship with someone I apprenticed with, and we worked on people together. I was already a massage therapist at that point. I'm retired from massage therapy now, but I was a massage therapist for 30 years. And back then, she could tell that I was actually energetically responding to things. So as we would trade, I would work on her, and that I wasn't necessarily consciously aware of. And so that kind of started this apprenticeship with her. I said, "Can I learn from you?" She was very clairvoyant. So she could see what I was doing and wasn't actually fully aware of it yet, and help me guide me with that process. And one of the main things we did with etheric healing was working on light grids in the body, first being able to perceive them, where there are breaks and things like that, and how to repair them. And that clearly connected with consciousness. They're not just light, they're light filaments, but it related to the consciousness of the person and the health issue, the pain, whatever we were working on, and of course, emotional issues as well. And so it was very impressive to see some of the results that would happen from that. And as that evolved, when like one of the big things we would do would be, when someone had like back pain, we would often see there was like a knife in their back or something, or a sword from another lifetime that was left. And that was basically unresolved issues to do with that lifetime. And so we would literally use our hand and pull that sword out, and then do energetic healing in the what's called the etheric body, the etheric template, which is what the physical body basically manifests or mimics. And when that would change in the etheric body, the physical body would change, often instantly. Often the pain or the problem was gone instantly. And even long-term illness sometimes. Usually that takes a little bit more, because there's lots of layers of issues and lifetimes and trauma from childhood that's buried. But I didn't know all that back then. We were learning along the way. And sometimes, though, that weapon wouldn't remove from the body, or the healing wouldn't quite the click, and we started to get into what we call aspects, which are basically that past life person is still in their consciousness, or that child is frozen in time in their consciousness. And it's saying, I know I don't want to let go of this or something like that. And so we start a telepathic dialogue with those aspects, or that aspect, help it to see a new perspective, release its pain, its emotional pain and attachment to certain beliefs. And then that would allow us to complete the healing process. So that sort of started this journey with understanding consciousness a lot more. And of course, as I began working with the ET Ascended Masters, which we talk about in a lot of my other interviews with you, they channeled through Jaron, Raje's father, and who was my former partner. We would talk about like what exactly that is, those aspects, and how they are stuck in consciousness. So I'm going to talk about that more in this interview a little bit later. But as that work evolved, and I met Raje when she was 9 years old, and she was just precious, and I just saw this golden light within her, and I'm like, I want to help bring this out, because the other side of the family was not supportive, which she'll mention that in a minute. But we're the side of the family that is, and as metaphysical, spiritual, and opening up all of that. But as she began to well, she'll talk a little bit about her experience in working with me. But as things evolved, and I think it was around 2014, she actually had some unconscious trauma come up. I recognized it right away. And of course, by that point, I was well trained in techniques like EFT, emotional freedom techniques, matrix reimprinting. Those are designed especially for this type of healing. And so I helped her through a lot of that, and her abilities opened up as a psychic. She helped me in my trauma coming up then, 2016, 2017, unconscious trauma. I'm super aware person, but all of us have unconscious stuff. And in that process, we discovered, hey, we could work together and really accelerate people's healing. And that's what happened. So we started that in 2016 and saw phenomenal results. So I'll share some more stories about that in a few minutes. But Roger, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you to talk about how you come to be doing this stuff.
Okay. So hi, I'm Rajay Ashley, and I guess it all began really when I was a baby. I was born with these abilities. I was always able to see auras and energies and angels, ghosts. I could see all kinds of things. And of course, in the beginning, I didn't quite understand it as well as I did later. But I can remember as young as 2 years old sitting there. I remember very vividly sitting on the corner of this bed. I was just sitting and just letting all this light wash over me. And I could just feel all this warm, just presence. And I heard all kinds of things. And I would tell my mom these things. I'm like, hey, this would help you. And of course, me being two, if a 2-year-old was telling me this, I'd be like, wow, where is this coming from? But she's just like, what is wrong with this kid? Like, where is this coming from? And I would tell her about all the things that I saw. And the only thing that side of the family really liked was that I could see ghosts. They thought it was, it was cool that you could see ghosts. But everything else was evil. Everything else is not of God. It's all evil. So don't do that. Stay away from it. So as I became a teenager, I blocked everything out because I was pretty much told suppress everything because it's bad. But thankfully, when I met SomRa, when I was 9, she recognized a lot of things in me. And when I would tell her and my dad the things that I could see, they're like, no, those are great things. So they would encourage me to, dig into it a little deeper. Um, I remember after all of those things, getting past my teen years, it was always there, but I wasn't as into it as deeply as I am now and when I was younger. But when I was adult and after I had my children, I started having triggers, of course, as we all do, of trauma started to come up because of things that had happened to me at these ages of when my kids were super little. And so I started working with SomRa, and she did a lot of EFT with me and matrix reimprinting to help me resolve a lot of things. Thank God, because that was a difficult time. It really was. I'm sure you remember that. It was almost every night calling like, this is what's coming up, because usually with me, once one thing starts, it's just happening. It's constantly going until you reach a certain level to where you're like, okay, I can breathe. So yeah, after I started working with her, we started testing out my abilities more and more, and then we decided we were gonna work with other people and help them. So that's how we got started working together.
I love it. And I just want to say, Samra, thank you so much for encouraging this beautiful soul rather than telling the opposite and making her shut down her gifts, which we hear about so much through those teen years. So supportive, you and Jerron, of this young soul. I just love it. And so, wow. All right. I'm glad that you are the mentor and actually you both help each other and now you're helping the planet. It's really fascinating the energy work that you guys are doing. So let's get into our conversation. Let's talk about intuitive abilities and how we begin to develop this intuitive abilities. Can you start on that?
That's a good question, and it's different for everybody. What I have found, well, both Roger and I have found, a lot of times what's blocking people's abilities are things like that. They were vocal about it when they were little, and then, people talked bad about it or acted like it was didn't mean anything. Sometimes the abilities just faded because nobody else acknowledged what the child is perceiving. Pretty much everybody is born perceiving light, and energies and all of that kind of stuff. And whether it's visual, auditorial, feeling it, or all of the above. And so reawakening those abilities, what we have found a lot of times, now some people are lucky, like they go through some spiritual experience and suddenly those abilities start opening. And I say lucky, but sometimes it can be a catch 22, because it's like they get overwhelmed by it because they have no grounding on how to work with that. But for the most part, what Roger and I have found is that what's blocking it is trauma a lot of times. And when a person heals, it's maybe trauma that has nothing to do with their psychic abilities when they were young. It's just there's a lot of unresolved emotion inside of everyone, and that connects with those limiting beliefs. And if you've got core beliefs like I'm not good enough, I'm not okay, everybody does, uh, then that can associate with your abilities. Like you don't validate something that's innate in you, or something that's actually, a natural part of you, and it's not been validated during your early development. So what we have found is a lot of times as people discover and heal unconscious trauma, then those abilities naturally wake up. And but particularly you got to want it. A lot of times you got to feed it. It's like working a muscle, weightlifting or something. You've got to work with it in order to keep developing it and know how to use it for your benefit. Roger, is there anything you want to add about that?
Yeah, I was going to say it really helps when people are curious about it, start thinking about it, or when you start researching certain abilities and just be open to it. So besides just healing your trauma, just being open to what you're capable of, because I believe too, when we come in, I mean, we all have those abilities, they just get shut down over time. So just being open to what you're able to do, what your abilities are, and just thinking about it, being curious, doing some research, and maybe do a little bit of healing here and there, attend some groups, and that really helps open you up.
So, how do you begin to discover the unconscious trauma? I guess we could label it as blocks. So, if we're trying to develop our intuition, but we're not letting it flow, something must have happened in a trauma. How would we begin to discover that or unravel that trauma?
Well, I can speak to that, and in fact, I've got some slides I can share. So it can be hard to address these things yourself, but your body has what's called body memory, and it leaves clues. And so you learn to follow those clues. A lot of times, what people think of as ascension symptoms, what we have found is actually there's a reason for them. They're not random. There's nothing that's random. There's a connection with some sort of trauma or something unresolved. So I want to kind of make that clear what we're talking about when we're talking about trauma.
Wow.
So,
I just want to reiterate that
yeah,
ascension symptoms are connected to unresolved trauma.
absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. Well, that's what we have found. There's nothing just happens out of nowhere. And a lot of spiritual teachers, well-meaning, of course, they're speaking about, well, it's the high energies coming through. Okay, that's all true, but it's hitting blocks. in
It's
your
the
field.
blocks. It's ascension symptoms are the blocks revealing themselves.
Exactly. Exactly. And that can be your clues where, oh, there's something unresolved. Now, sometimes just going and getting energy healing that can kind of move that energy and you're good. But there are some things that we really do need to find out what's there. We're finding this, especially in starseeds and light workers, have a lot of trauma in their buried in their unconscious. So basically, the ego is, it gets a bad rap in spiritual circles, right? But the ego is just a mechanism, like a computer. The computer's not bad, but when you have a computer that's not working well, that's because there are programs that are faulty, that are old, that don't communicate with each other. There are breaks in the software. And so that's what's the issue, not the ego itself. We absolutely must have an ego to function and interface in form in the physical reality. And the ego's purpose is for survival, to make sure that the body stays alive, that we don't, like the whole don't touch a burner thing, don't step in a fire, and all of that. Because without an ego, you would just go in la 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 and have no perception about those things. So want to make that very clear. So there's the conscious ego, there's the beliefs that listeners, all of us, we know about. It's like, oh yeah, I got that issue going on, oh yeah, I got that belief. But you may not know what's causing that belief. There's a deeper belief, there are deeper issues than that, and that's what's unconscious. And so what happens is, in the moment of a trauma, see, in the wild, we have a brain that's designed for survival in the wild. And so when something is stalking or attacking, there's the whole fight or flight. Okay, that's part of what the brain's mechanism is, to encourage survival. You either fight your way out of it, or you run away from it. And of course, there are other stages too, like freeze. Like some animals, they'll just freeze and play dead, until the stalker goes away. And we have that mechanism too. And that's why a lot of times we freeze, even in our adulthood, because that's a trigger. There's some sort of association, and our brain just doesn't know what to do in that moment. So, but in the wild, there's a work it out. There's an unraveling of that stress and tension, and it's released. And we know now, like you can go on YouTube and watch animals unwind, or like how horses shake things off. Sometimes you might see your cat or your dog shake things off. They're literally unwinding that from their nervous system. And so we all have that built-in mechanism. But what happens with humans is we're in a psychologically complicated environment. So we can experience, for instance, being held down and tickled mercilessly by an older sibling. And that's actually a trauma. That's not funny. That's actually a trauma. You are you're
Wow.
being violated. You are being controlled, and you don't know, your nervous system doesn't know the result. It's going to react as if you're being attacked and could be killed, literally. And so then that gets stuck in the nervous system, that reaction, because you don't ever really get to work it out unless you happen to get to fight it out with that sibling and you can unwind that. A lot of times that's not the case, because it's usually a bigger sibling, right? Someone bigger who is overpowering you, overpowering you. And so that gets stuck. That gets stuck in our consciousness in lots of little bits and pieces. Now, I'll show some screen share that kind of amplifies that. Is there anything you wanted to add first, though, Roger?
No, you're pretty much covering it. I was thinking about the whole trying to shake it out thing. And when we worked with people, sometimes you're like, okay, you got to get up. You need to shake it out. You need to try to release that because it gets trapped and you don't realize how much that actually helps.
Yeah, that's called a trauma release, when your body is shaking. And folks listening, if you ever experience that, you're thinking like, where that's coming out of nowhere, this shouldn't be happening, is because something in your environment or in your mind or energetically, like the energy's coming in and hitting the planet right now, is triggering it forward, is catalyzing it, because it's trying to resolve itself. It's trying, because it's not resolved. It's like videos playing all over your aura and your field. So I'll do a quick screen share here. I've got a couple of different things. Can y'all see that?
Yes.
Okay. So this is an image I created that I call a partition in consciousness, because this is what I have found is that there's what people are aware of themselves, and that's depicted here, the front of the brain. And this isn't really a brain thing, it's really consciousness, but a brain is a physical object that's associated that's what science can study. So I just put it this way. This is more metaphorical. It's not a direct line right in this position, but this is essentially it, the prefrontal cortex, who you think you are, how you interact with the world, what you think you remember about yourself and your history, and then everything that gets stuck, that doesn't get to unwind, unravel, release at the time, and we have a lot of these things, gets put in what's called the unconscious ego, or the unconscious self, so to speak. And so this is the back of the brain that I've depicted here with lots of clouds, and so things are vague. And so this happens during your development. And so this is very significant because it gets hardwired into your system, and you get getting stuck in patterns. So when we talk about a trauma or an event, okay, so in your it only takes a second. It only takes a second to experience a trauma. It's like a snapshot, and it's stuck in your field. In utero, a baby develops 250,000 brain neurons every minute. So your brain neurons are basically pathways. These correlate with consciousness pathways, which are in your field. And so those neurons are saying, okay, this is what reality is. This is what you do when this happens. This is where I'm safe. This is where I'm not safe. And that gets set up. Now, the good news is we're not stuck. So I want to make that clear right away. And science has discovered that it's called neuroplasticity. That means these neurons can change, but they do need help. They need certain techniques and so forth now to help you shift those. But anyway, as your brain is forming these neurons, your consciousness is forming these pathways, it's happening in lickety split. So we've got here during age 0 to 3, the brain develops more than 1 million neuron connections per second. I'll just think about that. If you experience in one day, a child could experience, let's say, 50 traumatic things. Let's make it, let's say just 10. From an adult's point of view, we don't understand how quickly and easily and a child can be traumatized just by the tone of our voice. That could leave a like a vibration that's like, oh, is that my fault? Did I say something? What did I do? It may not even have to do with us, right? But that's frozen. That gets stuck all in our consciousness and is part of our development. And so it takes less than 1 second for a child to experience trauma. So I've found some pictures here. This is like, being made fun of, parents yelling, arguing, and, in front of you, you hear this. That's all traumatizing to the child. And it's scary. It again triggers that. Am I going to survive? What's happening here? Is this feels like danger? And this is also energetically too. A child's picking up on it, even if something's not spoken. A child can pick up on the parents' repressed issues, repressed energy, anger, or even anger being projected, or sexual energy being projected at the child, or just all kinds of different things. It's very uncomfortable, and that's traumatizing for a child. And so that gets all set up in your neural network and stuck in your energy field. Here's an example of a child being yelled at, and her face is perfect here because she feels shamed. And that's a biggie, that whole I'm not okay, I'm not good enough. That's where a lot of these things come from, being criticized. Here's a child falling and, unexpected. Okay, that's a trauma. That's a shock. It doesn't always involve other people. Here's a child who's sick in bed. A lot of times, every time we were sick as a child, we were scared, particularly if we were in pain or it was really uncomfortable. It's like, when's this going to end? We don't know. So it's triggering that fear mechanism that's built into the ego for survival, because the fear is like keeps you from stepping in the fire, the fear of pain. But now it gets stuck on a psychological level that doesn't really actually compute with survival, but it's acting as if the mechanism is acting as if it's a life or death thing. And that's where panic attacks and things like that come in now. And here's a picture of bullying. That's a biggie of people being traumatized. And so to be clear, what a trauma is, this is an acronym that's often used, UDIN, which is it's something that's unexpected, dramatic, isolating, and there's no help. So it's moments where, you're shocked. Shock is usually part of it. It's unexpected. It's dramatic. It's usually something big, but not on the outside. It's experienced as big on the inside. And to a baby and a little child, everything is huge. Anybody who's had a child knows, it's like a toddler. It's like they're so emotional. There's a lot of emotion there, and adults don't understand the sensitivity of children. Loud sounds, conflicting energies, repressed stuff, tension between the parents. The child feels all of that and takes it right in their field. It's isolating, meaning it's often like you're the only one experiencing it and no one else understands. No one else is compassionate about it, which ties in with no help. There was no help to help you unwind and release that trauma, no comfort a lot of times. Sometimes it wasn't even recognized by the parents that there's an issue. The child doesn't know how to communicate, especially when they can't speak words yet. They can say, hey, I was traumatized by that, So but if the parent is also the abusive person or the perpetrator or the one who unknowingly or knowingly is doing damage to the child, well, then where are you going to get help from? Because it's supposed to be the parents who are to offer the comfort and help you process those emotions and make sense of what happened. So you're stuck. And that's kind of like how it happens, how we define what a trauma is. So here I mapped it out. 3,600 seconds in a day. Again, we think it only takes a second to experience being traumatized. 1,310,400,000 seconds in a year, 1 year. That's just your first year of life. By 6 years, 7,862,400 seconds in 6 years. Okay, so and I'm not in any way trying to scare anybody or anything like that, because you've made it this far, so you're okay. But to understand the magnitude of this, a lot of people are trying to do their spiritual practices and move towards ascension, but they aren't really addressing these things, and you can't leave them behind. Ascension is a unification of your whole being. That's one way of defining it. And so the word healing actually comes from a Latin word. It means to become whole. So that's what healing actually really is we're recollecting those pieces that are fragmented out and becoming whole again when we're talking at a true consciousness level. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Wow. We all have trauma. We all have trauma, whether we are aware of it or not. That is perfectly clear. And I am reminded of my girlfriend way back when we were young mothers. And she was saying, it's so frightening to think of being a parent because we can mess up our kids so easily. And this is why.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a few more images to share. But first, Roger, did you want to add anything?
That's pretty thorough. I just think, a lot of people don't realize how much unresolved trauma is still affecting us today. And when you go back and you start working on things, you're like, wow, I cannot believe how much that was actually affecting me now. I remember when I started working on things, I was just shocked at how many things from my past that was still running the show today.
Mm.
Yes. Yes. And your clues are your habits that you can't change, addictions, compulsions, of course, pain, illness. Those are your clues that you'll be following. And we'll get into that in a second, and to how you unravel this stuff. And it doesn't have to be super painful. I want to go ahead and add that right now. Folks, anybody who's feeling like afraid, oh my God, I don't know if I want to find out if I have sexual abuse in my history or something like that. The point is, the thing to keep in mind is that you've already experienced the trauma. This is just becoming aware, bringing it from the unconscious to the conscious so that healing and wholeness can occur. Remembering or becoming aware of the trauma cannot harm you. You already survived, and it shows how awesome you are as a being and as a soul. Because when you really realize what you have survived, a lot of people are blown away. And it's really important to focus on that empowered state of mind. Yes, we were victimized, absolutely. but we don't have to define ourselves as victims. We need to acknowledge that we were victimized. We need to come to realize that we did actually physically go through these things in this life, not just past lives, in this life, and buried them, bring them back, bring them to the forefront so that you can experience wholeness. So here's my next screen share. And this is really neat because this, to me, I was trying to find what's a good analogy so that people can really get a visual of this. So are y'all seeing the screen here?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I created this image. A great analogy to me is like micro SD chips. And most people know what those are. They go into phones and devices, and they're really teeny. They're like the size of your fingernail. And they now the most recent one I found can hold up to 1.5 terabytes of data. That's massive. And that equals 350 movies approximately. Okay. And so when we have these traumas and they're held, that it's like this movie that's in our, that, like I said, stuck in our field. And so here's a person, she's smiling. I chose a person who's smiling and looking happy because you can think you're happy. You can seem happy. Everybody thinks you're relatively well-adjusted person. But gee, where's that diabetes coming from? Where's that chronic back pain you have coming from? Or that compulsion to be controlling and not be able to let go. That's a big issue for a lot of people. Well, that's because there's trauma in here. I have some images of some wounded children and upset people, but basically it's not just that we have one microchip floating that's holding 350 movies. We have potentially hundreds of these chips in our field holding these frozen movies. They're stuck in time. They're playing out in loops, and they're driving our choices. They're driving our health issues, our emotional states, our beliefs. That's all in these chips.
Wow.
As well as a lot of times we become identified with those. Like, well, I'm a person that nobody listened to me when I was a kid, and I tried to warn them about this, or I tried to tell them about nobody listened to me. I'm somebody who's not listened to. That's where it becomes an identity. We like it beds in our neural network as our identity. I'm someone that people just beat up on. I'm someone that nobody cares about, or whatever. That's when it's really gets concretized and it becomes an identity. And we create all kinds of things to try to compensate for it, to try to be good enough, to try to be a people pleaser. That's a big one. If you're wondering where people pleasing comes from, just all kinds of these patterns. Well, this is the way, this is a way to resolve them but a lot of times you need help. You need to get to where it started. Now, here's the good news. As you get healing, and this is the work that Roger and I do, and we also teach people how to work with their own aspects as well. Each of these microchips turns into light, basically. So it's clear. Your natural state is pure beaming light, all of us. Okay. So these microchips, they act as what we talk about as blocks in the field. Okay. They're these black spots. They're actually little etheric crystalline balls a lot of times. And depending on how embedded, because it can be layers and layers and layers of beliefs, because every time you experience something similar, you reinforce the belief growing up. Like, yep, see again there. Nobody listens to me. Nobody cares about my feelings. And we reinforce them so it gets more and more concretized. And that's where layers come in. People talk about layers of the onion to heal something. It's rarely just one time or one issue. But so you get more light. Light equals awareness. Light equals, more your divine self. It equals love. Okay. You're embodying your own soul presence, the more lit up you are, right? And we know throughout history, we talk about Christ, we talk about Buddha, how their illumination was literally visual. A lot of people could see it. And so that's a part of that, but just you can feel it inside yourself when things are healing. You feel more light. You feel like a burden's lifted. And the good news is, what do you have when you clear all this stuff? Well, you become a light being. That's the path, folks. You heal and your natural light restores, and ultimately you ascend. And it's doable. It's totally doable. It can seem overwhelming, but your consciousness and your soul is leading you every step of the way in the journey, and will put practitioners and information in your path to help you. But you got to get on board with the journey and not be afraid of your stuff, because it's not more powerful than you. The real you is an extraordinary soul who embarked on this journey. You got tied up in knots in your consciousness, and now you're unraveling those knots. And the light is naturally going to emanate and awaken within you, and your body turns to light ultimately through that self-acceptance and self-love that happens innately in that.
I love that illustration, those illustrations. And oh my goodness, I'm just thinking about my own, even just this past week, my sister was in town. Wow, talk about unconscious stuff coming up. But it's very interesting. We all have this work to do. And when we look out at the collective, wow.
Yeah. It makes sense now why people act the way they do. All this political stuff, people going crazy, they're reacting to their own unresolved trauma, projecting it onto all this stuff out there. There is no out there. We are living in a hologram. What you're emotionally reacting to is your own unresolved stuff, not those people. And the outer changes. You find yourself, like I talked about my timelines interview with you, you find yourself in a new reality every time you heal something. It literally changes around you. If you want a better world, work on yourself, go within, heal yourself. Roger, is there anything you wanted to add?
I was going to say, I know looking at some of those images, it can be a little overwhelming to think, wow, I've got so much trauma. Like, where am I going to start? But it's not as overwhelming as you would think. And a lot of things that are similar, we can bring it all in together and clear it at once. So it's not just going through every single thing separately. We can bring it all in and help clear it all out.
Yes, very good point, because they're vibrational matches. So these places are stored in compartments in our consciousness. So a lot of times you could have bits and pieces of different traumas in one packet. And so you open that packet because there's a vibrational resonance of the type of trauma it was. There's some sort of association. So when we go into those packets, Roger and I do, helping people heal, then we can gather up all of those aspects at once, all that, everything in that microchip at once, and help bring those aspects into wholeness again and healing and reintegrate into your being.
Oh my gosh, I know so many want to work with you, because when we look at, it's all about blocks. I get this now. It's all about our triggers. And now I am aware of some people who say, I no longer have a trigger. They have done this inner work that we're talking about. But for the rest of us, when we say, oh, I feel blocked, what's blocking me? This is it. And so I know many are going to want to work with you and get that assistance. So maybe share some stories about how you've worked with clients and helped them unravel it.
Yeah.
Do you have some stories on that?
Yeah. Do you want me to start, Roger?
Yeah, you can go ahead and I'll jump
Okay.
in.
Yeah. We have our own little podcast we do on our YouTube channel, and we talk about a lot of these stories. And one we've shared before is a client who had this back pain come out of nowhere, and it just kept gnawing at her for weeks and weeks and months. And so she consulted us to help her get to the bottom of it. And what I think Roger saw this very specifics on this one. So how we work is I kind of, I'm working on the energetic field. I'm working on the light pathways. I'm connecting with the soul presence and the soul path of that person and how the issue ties in. And I'm doing all that kind of in the background. And I help navigate our sessions together. And Roger is like, some people describe it's like the scalpel, like I'm the doctor and she's the scalpel. And she like goes right in, or the laser, I guess would be the thing. And like, boom, finds exactly what's needed. The detail puzzle pieces we need to bring about the aha, for us and for the client. Oh, now this is where that belief came from. This is why you feel this way. This is where this pain comes from. So with that particular client, she also had a pattern of feeling blindsided in life. Like she was always tense and like something else is gonna like come out of nowhere and she'll be blindsided. She would often use that term. And so that actually tied in with this trauma. And what it was that Roger saw is when she was 4, her older brother, they were out playing, all the kids, there's a big family, all the kids were running around, and her older brother, who was actually secretly very jealous of her, came up behind her and hit her in the back with a bat and knocked her over, of course. And then he became scared because she was like, it looked like she was very, very injured. Apparently, no major physical damage, but that left a body memory impression. So of course she was hurting. And whenever that pain went away eventually at that age, now it came up at 60 some years old out of nowhere because something was triggered. That whole blindsided thing kept happening in her life with her husband and with certain situations, bills and so forth, that it was bringing that pain forward to go, hey, there's unresolved trauma here. Hey. And so as we did that, we work with the aspect and the pain goes away. But it's going to stay until you become consciously aware of where it comes from. In a lot of cases, that needs to happen because your soul wants you to remember. It's a part of your soul journey and your evolution to remember. We don't want to go about life and be in denial. It's like, I don't want to think about, oh, that's over, that's done. That's not how it works. It's still all right there in your field. And a lot of psychics and healers can't see these things or perceive these things because they haven't dealt with their own trauma. Roger, do you want to speak to that a little more?
I was trying to think of one of the things that's standing out right now is when one of our clients' child had a rash break out
Yes.
over her body. And so we were trying to go in there and figure out, what had happened. And it looked like when she was about 2, her family was moving. And one of the movers that was there happened to grope the child at some point. And that stuck with her and it just manifested as a rash. And when we went in, we healed that. And then her rash went away pretty much instantly. It was gone the next day.
Yeah. And the doctors didn't even know what the rash was. So, and I actually saw that one, and it was just a split second. The mover had just grabbed her crotch really quickly from behind the child. Yeah. Yeah. And so what that does is that leaves confusion in the child. There has no reference for that. Not only was there a weird violation and whatever body sensation was with that, but also it's like, why did that happen? I don't understand. What is this about? And that is a movie that stays stuck in a confusion cycle of thinking, trying to figure it out, but has no reference for it because the child doesn't understand why an adult would do something like that. And so by 4 years old, when she was 4, so this happened when the child was 2, when she was 4, something happened that triggered that body memory that week. And it came forward and suddenly her body broke out in the rash. It's basically saying, hey, pay attention to me. There's something that's not resolved here that I'm trying to resolve. The psyche is saying that. And so, yeah. And that's how we work. We go in and say, okay, where does this come from? Boom. Okay. And what I love about Roger's ability is that there's very little we don't need tarot cards, we don't need any kind of any tools or anything. She just goes, she focuses on the question. It has to be very specific questions. So that's why a lot of times, I navigate the sessions because clients a lot of times are all over the place. I want this, what about that, blah, 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 blah. I go, okay, narrow it down, ask the very pointed question. Roger goes within and the vision is revealed. Or she'll also hear words and also is clairsentient in terms of feeling it out as well and puts it all together. Does that describe it pretty well, Roger?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. So, I mean, other stories, we've got countless stories, but I'm looking at someone. Oh, yeah. So she's helped me with my trauma as well as like I've helped her. And there was one point I had a garden. This was several years ago and was fine for years working in the garden. But one day, I just walked into my garden and suddenly had a panic attack. It was like my heart was racing. I'm like, what on earth is going on? And often we can't access it in our brain because it's suppressed memory. There's a mechanism in the brain that suppresses the trauma. That's also part of it. I go into why we don't remember traumas. But basically, the ego is focused on survival in the moment when we experience the trauma. So it just is focused on getting out of the trauma, out of the, being tickled mercilessly or being sexually violated or whatever it is. It's just like, get through that. So the memory center called the hippocampus in the brain gets flooded with a hormone called cortisol, a stress hormone, and that's suppresses the memory, so you can focus on getting out of the dangerous situation, what the brain experiences as dangerous. And so then that's part of the memory repression. You don't remember. So so I asked Roger, it happened 2 days in a row. I go out in the garden and have this heart racing. And what she saw was a scary thing happen. Someone scared me in my grandfather's garden when I was 2 years old, just suddenly showed up. And it was it's not necessarily logical now, but that stuck part got triggered just by something in the scene, or it was time for that memory to come up and heal. So we help that aspect. No more panic attack in my garden. Back to peace. That's
Wow.
how it works. We just got to get in touch with the origin and help that aspect. Sometimes that involves talking telepathically with them. And that's mostly what we do, is we talk telepathically while I'm working on the energy field, helping to bring all the pieces together. And boom, we just help people accelerate in their healing as quickly as possible.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Okay. So you're able to do this on a group level. And in a short while, we're going to talk about a really wonderful online experience on a group level that will help everybody who wants to join in this. And that's a very affordable option for people.
We actually tuned in to see possibly doing a mini group healing as well. What our listeners are needing now most is for opening to be receptivity, because there's, and those blocks, a lot of times we have those blocks are blocking receptivity to healing. That's why a lot of these conditions are persistent. And so, Brigitte, does that feel like that's the thing we need to focus on?
Yeah, I feel like that would be the most benefit to the most people right now.
And can you describe what you were seeing? Because that was very interesting. That gives people a sense too of how you perceive.
So it's always different. It just depends when I'm tuning in. But when I was tuning in for this earlier, what I saw pretty much was like constricted rubber bands in places. And for the healing to happen, to be more open, like they were popping at these little places where it was open, so you could fit in between there again. So I also see that sometimes when I'm doing healing, it's like there's a block. There'll be like the tube of light, but there's blockages in different places. And then those, as they bust up and go away, then the light can come through again.
Okay. So that's what we're going to be doing, is helping everybody listening to this call to open up pop those rubber bands, as you say, with much grace and ease as possible. So while you're listening, and we will be vocalizing, we'll be silent. Possibly I might make some toning sounds to help shift energy and vibration, might even lead somebody to tap on a acupressure point. Just depends. We'll be following our guidance, but we'll be silent at some points, and we'll vocalize what we're perceiving to just help you along as you may be. We encourage you all listening to just be open to receive with, call in your guides, your angels. It's all, there's a whole team effort here that's working on your behalf, and, wants you to experience the healing, the benefits, the wholeness, the balance, all of that stuff is all, the universe is supporting you. So the more you can be in that space and just relax and breathe, then you may actually feel some of those pops happening. But even if you don't, know that it's happening, because we're here, we're holding everybody in this wonderful healing bubble. Okay. All right. So everybody listening, take a deep breath and let it go. And if you want to, you can invite the support of your guides and angels in this process. And what helps really invite them is to put your attention on your heart and feel gratitude for their presence. Just feeling grateful that there really is so much love and support for you, even if you don't feel it all the time or in the ways you want. It is here now and always. We just want to bring that presence in more. Those of you who are aware that you have a magnificent soul, that that's the real you, you can welcome your soul presence as we're working. If you like to work with color, envision yourself surrounded by a ball of golden light that resonates with your soul presence, or simply your favorite color that you love. See your body filled and surrounded by that color as we're working. And just relax and breathe. If you have any awarenesses come up, you may want to jot them down. But most importantly, right now, is just to open and receive.
SomRa, I was hearing a couple of things while you were talking. One was it's safe to be open. I've been feeling like there's a lot of fear about, okay, I want to be open, but I'm afraid of what's coming through. I'm afraid of what I'm going to find, what's there. But also I was hearing it'd be good to lead through tapping as well to help
Okay.
try to lessen that.
Like a whole process or something specific?
A whole process, but mainly about the fear of opening up.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to lead everybody through that while Roger is working on the deeper levels of your consciousness. So for EFT, it's important to keep your eyes open and be present. So just relaxed and present. And the exact points don't matter as much, but just follow along with me as best you can. And these points that we're tapping on are specific acupressure points that help draw that energy, that stuck energy up and out of you so that it can be recycled into the universe into something useful rather than held fear or resistance. So tapping on the side of the hand, and Loren, if you could be the echo for me. I'm going to say a statement, and everybody listening, you say it out loud too if you can, or at least in your head if you are not in a place where you can speak out loud. Just say, even though I have this fear
I have this fear
of opening up
of opening up,
right here, right now, I could be safe.
I'm here right now, I could be safe.
Even though I have these fears
Even though I have these fears
and fear of uncertainty,
and fear of uncertainty,
of what I'm worried might be there.
of what I'm worried might be there.
Mhm. This is just an interpretation.
This is just an interpretation.
All is love.
All is love.
Source is love.
Source is love.
And no matter what I discover,
No matter what I discover,
that contributes to me experience more source love.
that contributes to me experiencing more source love.
Even though I've had these fears,
Even though I've had these fears,
I'm willing to consider
I'm willing to consider
that it's safe to let them go
that it's safe to let them go
and open up to the love of source.
and open up to the love of source.
Okay, everybody take a deep breath with that. Keep tapping. Great. And we're going to go to the eyebrow point, which is right here where your eyebrow starts. Just gently tapping, relax your shoulders. I wonder if it's possible.
I wonder if it's possible
The side of the eye, right on the bone, tap, that I am completely safe.
that I am completely safe.
And then under the eye, right on the bone, that I'm completely safe right here, right now.
That I'm completely safe right here, right now.
And under the nose, as I become aware of hidden energies
As I become aware of hidden energies
in my unconscious.
in my unconscious.
I want to be free of them.
I want to be free of them.
This is right under the collarbone. And then take your forefingers and tap under your rib cage. So they need to come up and out of me.
So they need to come up and out of me.
It could be safe to let that happen.
It could be safe to let that happen.
under the arm. Yeah. And then top of the head. I'm willing to consider it could be safe,
I'm willing to consider it could be safe,
that I could be completely safe.
that I can be completely safe,
And in fact, will become even safer
and in fact will become even safer
because as I heal these things,
because as I heal these things,
I will no longer attract or manifest reflections of them.
I will no longer attract or manifest reflections of them
Because the issue will be resolved
because the issue will be resolved
and my life will become more and more harmonious.
and my life will become more and more harmonious.
Okay. And then tap under the rib cage. That doesn't sound so bad.
That doesn't sound so bad.
And then under the arm, 4 fingers. I'm willing to open up.
I'm willing to open up
Top of the head and receive these healing energies
and receive these healing energies
of source love.
of source love.
Good. Everybody stop tapping. Take a deep breath. And again, just close your eyes, relax. Good. That's moved a lot of energy there.
There's definitely been a lot of changes while you were going through that. I was seeing so many different things, so many colors. There's like grids with different shapes. There was a lot of blockages that I saw that were breaking away and just allowing the light to go through a lot more easily. It feels
Yay.
like everything is a lot more open now.
Yeah. Yeah, everybody keep breathing. Take some nice, relaxing, deep breaths. If you like, just envision you're being held in the hands or a bowl or just the loving energy of source, supported by all your guides and angels who are your team, always working with you to help you resolve each of these patterns and become more and more the light and love that you are in this world, here now.
Wow, I don't know if you can feel that as strongly as I can. Just like it's really, really opened up. And now everything, I was seeing so many different colors, but now it's like ending with that gold, warm, glowy gold.
Lovely. Does that feel complete for you, Roger? Yeah, me too. Okay, everybody, you can take another deep breath. Integration breath. Let that breath go. Gently open your eyes.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I do feel open and refreshed, and I can't explain how, but I do feel the shift. I'm hoping everyone is feeling likewise. Wonderful. Wow.
Yes, and this is a good sign because we've done this work a lot of times, but we're finding the quickening is definitely happening, the acceleration. Uh, Souls are wanting to wake up, and we're seeing just more and more is coming forward, more and more that's been hidden. You're going to see that on the public arena, but also it's mirroring what's happening on the personal arena, which is really what you're here for, is your own healing and resolutions. And this includes lifetimes as well, past lives. And as you do that, then the collective changes. Each time each one of us heals even one of those little traumas, and definitely one of those microchips, that goes into the collective consciousness and cuts a pathway, allowing more and more people to get okay with similar vibrational issues and resolve them more quickly. And that's the acceleration as we move into new earth. That makes it happen.
So in a group level like this, and when you work with groups, we're going to be sharing an event with everyone that they can join and do this. Will we bring our intentions or questions of what we want to heal, or will we just show up and see what happens?
Well, when you do register for our event, you will get an email that will prepare you for, how to come, what to come with, like, pen and paper, come with a specific issue you want to focus on.
Okay.
And, we be doing, there'll be more opportunities, and we will also, and, it's not like you're ignoring other issues, but it allows for the energy to be more focused, because it's kind of like, I use the analogy of, you can have piles of dirty clothes throughout your house, and you can go room to room and pull a sock here and a shirt there, off the pile. And that is healing, but it's not going to be as tangible. Your progress is not going to be as tangible. Those piles are still there for a while. But if you pick one thing and we go deeper into that pile, you're going to tend to experience a more tangible, quicker result with that particular issue. And interestingly enough, so many of our health issues, our emotional, psychological issues, and our circumstantial issues connect. And so when you resolve and focus on one, that's those connections, those filaments begin to unravel the other ones and accelerate your healing. So bring one primary health issue, circumstantial issue, spiritual issue, even, like you don't feel like you connect with your guides or hear your angels. That's an issue in a way, because we're all built in with that innate ability. If that's your primary thing, you don't necessarily have a physical health issue, that's fine. You can bring that to the group, and you'll write that down on a piece of paper as your focus. And then we will go in and we'll lead everybody through processes throughout, whether it's just relaxing and receiving, might be tapping on something, or some sort of visualization. So it is interactive. Everybody's microphones will be off, but we will have opportunities at the end for people to share what they realize, and they can pop things in the chat. We don't need to know what everyone's issues are, because obviously if we have a big group, that's just getting through reading all of those will be a lot. All we need is your focused intention as a participant, and all that's needed to work on your behalf is provided in that container as we do the healing. Is there anything else you wanted to add, Rajay?
Everything is connected. Even if people have different issues that they're coming in with, everything is connected. It all ends up getting worked on. And by the end of everything, everybody feels a lot better. It goes really well.
Yeah, we've had people have emotional releases in these groups, even though we didn't speak directly with them. It's like Rajay said, I'm seeing this, and it was actually a past life. It was someone in the group's past life. And no matter what, even if it's one people or just 10 people out of a big group that have that particular resonance or issue, everyone benefits. But it turned out at the end, she asked, because we allow for a question and answer and comments at the end, if that was her past life. And it turns out it wasn't, but it was such a strong resonance with some other past lives and personal stuff in this life that she had this huge emotional release and clarity about.
It's really fascinating how, and we've seen this time and time again in the group sessions, where one person will have an issue, but then other people in the group will benefit from the clearing of that issue, as you said, how it's all interconnected. So what also comes to mind is that people can take the recording from this event and bring a new question, right?
Yes. Very good point. Because when we're talking about the quantum realm,
Yeah.
all time is now. So yeah, you could use that particular session again and again with a different issue, because we're going to be tuning into everyone who will ever listen to the recording, and throughout all space and time. So that would include you, a future self, who listened to it again with a different issue.
Really fascinating. I'm excited for this, and I know others are excited for it. It's really beneficial and very helpful. So I want to thank both of you for offering this. It's really fascinating to watch you do this as well, and then to sense the shift from just those few moments that we were doing today. That's incredible. So to think of a full session, a full webinar with you, just imagine the clearing that will come from that. It sounds really wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome. And we're holding everybody in a space of love. We have no judgment about what we're perceiving. We have to go through it ourselves, you know. We've had to go through that self-acceptance ourselves, and that's often the big key that heals everything is self-acceptance and self-love, and it's often the hardest thing for people to do because of these aspects. Unconsciously, they believe that what happened was their fault. They believe they must be bad, that pain was afflicted on them, or even if they just fell and it was just an accident. They have very rudimentary circuitry at the time of the event. So, out of what they could understand what it could be, well, they conclude it must have been my fault. I must be bad. I must be wrong. You may not have necessarily been abusively told those things or criticized. They were just automatic, and it's part of being on Earth, and it's part of why we're here. We took on all these crazy distortions, and now we're unraveling them. And just like that picture of through the healing, more and more light, Earth and the collective is also becoming more and more and more light. And boom, we're in the reality that we've been working so hard for all this time. And from my point of view, this is it. This is the pivotal piece that a lot of people haven't gotten to yet, or not fully. And I want to also add, keep in mind that we're not just healing stuff, it's all purposeful, because you're meant to gain awareness and wisdom and understanding through it all. And that's the piece I add a lot as well. There's an understanding why an abusive person was doing what they did, and not just intellectually, but from the inside out through your healing. That can only happen through your healing process and connecting with your emotions. Emotions are key, and it's often the thing that people are avoiding, and they don't even know it. And emotion and anxiety starts to come up, and then they go reach for food, or they go check their Facebook or whatever. They don't realize that actually a very quick compulsion came because you're triggered emotionally and you're trying to distract yourself from feeling what that is. You need to go into those things. And when people work with me individually, I take people through EFT and other processes where we actually get even more into that. So some people see us together and individually, and it all goes hand in hand, you know, work with us regularly as we just keep unraveling all this stuff. And where we're heading is just you hid gifts in there too. You hid beautiful qualities and abilities that you don't have access to because they're stuck in the compartment too. Your joy, you know, where did your joy go? Where did your enthusiasm every day go? You can't make that happen through positive thinking. That actually pushes it down more when we practice positive thinking excessively. It's great to have an optimistic attitude, but not as an avoidance to deal with what you need to deal with and face that. So we lovingly help people with that and teach you how to help yourself so you can do this and become empowered every single day of your life as you keep on this journey of awakening, true spiritual awakening, collecting all of you and awakening all of you.
As you said, healing is becoming whole, and this is assisting us in becoming whole, removing all those SD cards, as you said, and allowing that light to shine through us. That is such a helpful illustration for all of us today. And so as we were more open, can you give us a percentage, Rizé, or I don't know if it has to be a number, but what do you see now that we're all open? You had mentioned you saw a lot of colors. What amount of clearing or openness do you sense that we witnessed and experienced today in this
Just
shift?
while you were asking that, I got 80% really clearly. I mean, it was a major, major difference. Like, it was amazing.
Thank you. Thank you for this incredible work. We're really excited for your webinar coming up. I want to point our audience to scroll down on this webpage you're watching this program on and check out that webinar. Sign up for it. This is such an opportunity for you to do incredible work at a very affordable price. It's an investment in your soul that will allow you to further unravel all of this trauma so that your light can truly, truly shine even more. As both these beautiful ladies mentioned, this is an accelerated healing opportunity. And wow, I think we're all ready for it. So register for that. Wherever you're watching or listening to this video, in the description box, you'll also find the link to that. And if you need assistance with that, we have a 2-payment option. We hope that makes it easy for everyone to join in and participate. Again, I'm really excited for this. Bring your question for your intentions on the healing work that you want to do, and let's see how rapidly we can shine our light more abundantly. All right, beautiful SomRa and Roger. Is there anything that we didn't get to that you might want to speak on? I actually have a question. There are some who maybe have a medical diagnosis or they've been dealing with a health issue for years now. Why is it that some things take so long to clear?
I guess I'm going to start on this one. There's so many layers to things. There's lots and lots of layers. So sometimes it takes people longer than others. Sometimes it's just one thing, it clicks and they're good to go and they're moving on from it. They don't have to worry about that again. But with a lot of other people, there's just a lot of layers that you have to work through and keep working through. And as you're working through those things, you are healing, you're getting better, and the health issue becomes better. It just takes a little bit more time for some.
Yeah, and if you're avoiding, you've got a mechanism that was set up when really young at the time of the traumatic event. And again, and I didn't make the distinction little t traumas and big T traumas. All of these are traumas. Little t would be something like you didn't get the present you wanted for Christmas. It was a shock. That stuck in your field, and beliefs incurred from that. Like, I guess I can't have what I want. And now you're trying to manifest and you don't realize you got this stuck self that's insisting you can't have what you want because it's convinced. It's basically convinced and it's holding on to that. So, there may just be one puzzle piece you're looking for and that or that's needed to come forward. And a lot of people believe are stuck in that I've got to do this all myself. And you really can't when we're talking about unconscious trauma. You can to a certain degree, but the bigger the trauma is, the more you need external help from trauma-informed, trauma-educated practitioners like ourselves and personally experienced in the process. And so we can help you get that puzzle piece, help you move that through. And then, once that piece is it, a lot of times people are off and running. Sometimes they have to work with us through several sessions to unravel, each layer. But be patient with yourself and know that you are on that journey. The more willing you are to just see what's there, to just know yourself, the whole know thyself, this is what that means. Not just know that you're an awesome soul, that's true too, but know what you have endured, what you have experienced. And there's tremendous honor and self-respect that comes with that when you really get it. Wow, I must be a powerful being if I experienced that and survived and have been functioning all this time. Even if you've just been coping with coping mechanisms, your psyche kept you going. You didn't, do yourself in. If you're listening to this call, you're still physically informed. I think maybe some others are fourth dimensional beings are listening to, but the idea is you made it. So just having this puzzle piece of awareness of what you physically experienced in this life that you forgot. It's I just can't put in words the enormous self-realization that occurs with that, because most of us are running on this assumption of what our life and our history is and who our family was. That's because the brain and the mind does selective memory to try to cope. That's another part of it. Or we'll create fantasies about the family. Can't tell you how many times people have said, I actually had a really idyllic childhood and didn't have any abuse. And we often find they've had the most abuse, and they just selectively remembered this one thing that they created in their mind around it and kept feeding that belief over and over.
Wow.
Even if the parent's still alive and they're all nice, apparently there's a big difference between behaviors and energy. In those people, a lot of times have repressed dark stuff, shadow stuff. They did things and to their child that was inappropriate. And so the person, we try to help people with that. How do you reconcile that if you're still interacting with that person? That gets kind of complicated. Sometimes we really encourage people not to interact with those people anymore because that darkness is keeping you stuck in interacting with that person. That's a whole other subject. But just understanding that you're not who you think you are. And that's actually ultimately a good thing, because who you think you are, what goes into all of that is, I'm not good enough. I'm not okay. I'm not evolving fast enough. I'm not as spiritually aware as so-and-so. Oh, they know so much more than me. They're better than me. All that stuff running in your head, consciously or unconsciously. Are you ready to be done? Are you ready to be done and just start shining the light that you are?
Yes.
Well, you need to face those things head on. It's like I use the analogy of a closet. When you have stuff that's like, oh, this is too good to throw away or give away. I might use this one day, so we shove it in a closet. Or it's just like something uncomfortable. I don't know what to do with this, but I can't. I shouldn't throw it away right now. Like maybe something that has some negative memories, photos or whatever. Let's shove it in the closet. Shove it in the closet. Shove it in the closet. Well, this healing, you got to open the closet door. You got to see what's been shoved in there and just face it and own it, that, hey, this was a part of my history, but it doesn't define me. I'm still an awesome being. I'm still a grand soul. I'm still spiritually awakening. This event doesn't define me. And in fact, it shows me how extraordinary I am, that I coped with it. I survived it. And now all I need to do is bring it back into the love of my being, back into my wholeness. And that's where folks, facilitators like us, come in to really help with those difficult things.
Beautiful. I'm hearing that song. Looks like we've made it. Wow.
Won't
Okay.
that be a glorious day too? Yes, when we're all singing that song.
Oh, something just makes me want to cry. And I feel it's more than 80% open right now. This has been very healing. Just you were right, Roger. Just just what we did today, just even this conversation, this awareness of this trauma is helping to reveal more about ourselves and the depths of our experiences. But we all came in raising our hands really high, didn't we? We all came in saying, yeah, we got this, we can do it. So it's beautiful that you ladies are offering this healing process on such a profound way. Thankfully, we've got the internet that brings groups together from all over the world that allow us to facilitate situations like this. That to me is almost feeling like it's fifth dimensional and quantum in its own sense. And so again, we invite everyone watching and listening, feel into this. If you experienced this today, if you've always wondered about that dream or about situations or about behaviors, patterns in yourself, blockages, why you can't bring your gifts on, this is going to assist you in that. So as we say goodbye, ladies, I want you to offer any final thoughts on what I just said there, on how this really will help one accelerate their ascension path.
Yeah, I guess I'll go first. I wanted to also, there was a bullet point that we mentioned that I want to tie this up in, and that's what karma actually is. Karma is not that you did something in another life and that's why you experienced it now. This is a misconception in society that's holding people in spiritual circles back. It's a very polarity point of view. It Karma is actually what you left unresolved, what you believed about yourself that's not true, what pain and suffering that you endured as a child in that past life that led to perhaps an action that was, unkind to someone else, then that's where the healing is. It's what are those underlying beliefs that drive it all. And where we're heading is basically, it's just understanding. It's understanding there's a bigger picture here. It's having compassion and understanding everybody is damaged. Everybody is wounded. Everybody, even spiritual teachers, even seemingly the most enlightened, everybody's at different stages of their healing, but everyone took it on. Just being on earth has been traumatizing. It's been exhausting for a lot, just being born into this field. And so you're a part of it all. Everybody, you're a part of it all. And it's not ever that you did something bad. It's that you believed, you had conflict that led to that behavior. It's that internal conflict that's calling for healing. So we help with that as well. So knowing all of that, and with that, again, reclaiming your gifts, your empowerment, you become whole, you see through God's eyes, so to speak, because, the divine has no judgment. Source is not judging you for any of these things. Source is the all that is, holding a container for all of these experiments and experiences to unfold, these stories to unfold, so that we as souls can gain wisdom and more understanding of who we are as one with Source. And so that's that ultimate state to get to. I'm not in any way talking about forgiving behaviors or any of that. It's not about other people. True healing is about your relationship with yourself. And you could say ultimately forgiving yourself. In the Bible, there's talks about Jesus's healing and saying, you are forgiven. Well, people put authority in Jesus as some sort of healing power, but ultimately, it still had that effect in that moment. It's like, oh, well, if this grand being is saying I'm lovable again, then I must be okay. And it was the self-acceptance that did the healing ultimately. And that's true. Even with what we do with any healer, it's your own coming to self-acceptance. And that resolves the conflict, and you're now back in harmony with Source again. And then you get to be, you become more and more the Source, the droplet of Source that you are in the ocean of the divine.
So to add on to that, I would just say, helping healing ourselves is helping heal all of us. It's really opening us all up to bigger and better things. And as you get to know your true self and all these false negative beliefs fall away, things are just going to get better and better. You're going to be better at manifesting. You're going to be able to get rid of any of your health issues and stuff like that. It's just going to really help progress you in your life and make everything much better. And that transpires to everyone down the line,
Absolutely. Because when we heal ourselves, it radiates to everyone in our reality. It's not about changing or fixing anybody else. And this isn't really about fixing yourself. It's more about loving yourself back into wholeness, because there really aren't any problems. It's just a series of experiments, discoveries, and awakenings. And everyone, please check out below the special offer we have. We'd love to have you in the group. We'd love to support you in advancing your own healing and just moving forward so that you can become the light and love that you are in this world, and live relaxed and at peace and enjoy, and really expressing your gifts, your joys, your interests, who you are in this world.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for the vibrations today, for the information today, the wisdom, the uplifting, and the actual shift in our energy field. We now know the importance of doing this deep, deep inner work. And I think we're all ready. Thank you for this. We love you. Thank you, SomRa. Thank you, Roger.
Thank you for having us, Lauren.
Thank you for listening to this quantum conversation, and thank you for dancing with us to the cosmic heart. As we raise our own vibration, we raise the vibration of the planet. This show is dedicated to you and all awakening hearts, as we are here to shine our bright light and amplify our love. I'm Loren Gailey, and from my sacred heart to yours, I honor your magnificent love and light. This has been a presentation of New Earth One Network, your home for New Earth living. Access information, education, and videos on living from the heart in unity consciousness. Visit newearth1.com.